Mr. Mamdani, are your proposals going to hurt the very people you're trying to help?
Not at all. There have been many in editorial board who have had concerns, and what we've shown is that more than 400,000 New Yorkers are excited about this vision. And the reason they're excited about it is one that is in line with the scale of the crisis in this city. I mean, we are talking about our tax base.
As soon as you see the smile, you know they're lying. Anyone with any sense and anyone who understands anything about economics will know that these grocery stores will not work. It's been tried, it's been tested, socialism never works, but what they always say is that it wasn't implemented correctly. Let's look at this. I'm going to react. I've been warning people from day one. I was saying, look, this guy is saying some questionable things. He's not good for New York. And now the Democrats are in a position where they have to line up with him. They need to fall in or fall out. And a lot of them are falling in, but a lot of them are calling him out.
Proposals. They say a massive minimum wage would depress low-skilled employment. His rent freeze would reduce the housing supply and decrease its quality. Cutting bus fares would leave a transit funding hole that, unless somehow filled, would erode service. Meanwhile, the grocery business operates on thin margins, and his plan for city-run stores would probably lead to fewer options, poor service, and shortages.
Obviously, like, this is not rocket science. And this is why when AOC was backing him and AOC was on the float at the Puerto Rican Day Parade and all of that, and people are rejoicing, I'm like, it's dumb. It's really dumb. Anyone who knows anything about New York, I grew up in New York. I grew up in the Bronx. Anyone who knows anything about New York knows that there's a really large cohort of bodegas. So bodegas are like your corner shop. And they're usually, or a lot of them are run by Spanish-speaking people. So if you're going to introduce free grocery stores into any community, even though he says it starts with a pilot, obviously it's going to impact them. So I don't see why people didn't think it through. But what's starting to happen now is you're starting to see a divide. They are definitely dividing us. But what's happening now is you're seeing the pro-Mamdani people, and you're seeing the pro, well, let's just back Eric Adams because he's black people. It's going to be interesting, but people did not see this coming, and I don't understand why, because it was as clear as the nose on my face.
Mr. Mamdani, are your proposals going to hurt the very people you're trying to help?
Not at all. There have been many in editorial board who have had concerns, and what we've shown is that more than 400,000 New Yorkers are excited about this vision. And the reason they're excited about it is one that is in line with the scale of the crisis in this city. I mean, we are talking about our tax base growing smaller and smaller each day, with New Yorkers leaving to New Jersey, to Pennsylvania, to Connecticut.
Now, he's being disingenuous when he only talks about Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut. A lot of New Yorkers are moving to red states. So they're moving to Tennessee, they're moving to Florida, they're moving to Texas. But he tries to craft this argument to make it look like the wealthy people that are leaving to other blue states. And it's not factually correct. You have to watch people when they don't give you context to numbers or ideas. You should always ask yourself, compared to what? So if you're saying there's a 15% increase and this is the number, compared to what? So if you have one person a day that something's happening to, and then all of a sudden three people that same thing is happening to, then it's a 300% increase, right? So you want to know what the number is as well as what the percentage is, because what people tend to do is they use percentages when it's convenient to make the thing look or feel bigger, and they use numbers when it's convenient to make it look or feel smaller. So like, as a salesperson, one of the things that you learn is if you're trying to sell someone like insurance, you'll always say, well, you know, it's just about the cost of a cup of coffee. I'm sure you've heard people say or use that on you. You'll say, oh, it's about the cost of a cup of coffee. It's just, you know, $1.25 a day. But they won't talk to you about the monthly cost or the yearly cost, because then the number will sound a lot bigger. So he's a snake oil salesman. But I guess you have to give him credit, because of a lot of his socialist or communist ideas, at least he's articulating them because he knows it's resonating at the moment. And with the backing of AOC, they are really selling these bodega owners under the bus. Like they're selling them out. Well, I should say they're throwing them under the bus.
We do not meet this moment, we will lose this city. And our proposals are ones that are thought out. They are ones that are also clearly going to be funded by these revenue streams. I'll give you an example. When we talk about grocery stores, I've put forward a proposal for a pilot of one grocery store in each borough. These are 5 grocery stores that would cost $60 million in a city budget of more than $113 billion.
Right, so he throws out these numbers and it makes, oh yeah, well, it's only 5 grocery stores. All right, let's work this through. You put one grocery store in each borough. I'll talk about the Bronx because I know the Bronx. You put a grocery store on Southern Boulevard. There's going to be a demand issue. So everybody that is eligible to go to that grocery store is going to go there. So then they're going to say it's successful. They're going to say, we cannot meet the demand. Therefore, we need to do what? Open more. They'll open more. And as they open more, the bodegas that are competing with those grocery stores won't be able to compete. And then it will get to a point where you have more of these government subsidized grocery stores, and then they will then control the market. And then it then means when they run out of stuff, you can't get it. So this whole idea of putting numbers behind it and giving these statistics, but not actually doing the second order thinking. All right, so one in each borough, it will be successful without a doubt because it's going to be cheaper because it's subsidized by the government. So then you'll have a demand issue. Then more people will want to use it, which means they'll say, oh, it's successful. We need more of them. And then these ideas start sometimes with good intentions, but they never work out.
And ultimately, the reason that we are so excited by them is we've seen that they've worked in Kansas. We've seen that when a feasibility study was done in Chicago, it was shown to be something that was not only feasible, but pressing and urgent in an urban setting. And finally, it costs less than half of what the city's already set to spend on subsidizing corporate supermarkets without any guarantee of cheaper prices, any guarantee of collective bargaining agreements, or that they accept SNAP or WIC.
Why would one grocery store in each borough put bodegas out of business?
Cancer starts with a small cell in your body. And if you don't extract it, it spreads. You start with one idea like this, a foolish idea, it may spread. And we don't want it to get to that. If he decides that one store worked, maybe 2 stores would work, maybe 100 stores will work. And if you let him spread his ignorance, because this is being ignorant, really, then we have a huge problem.
Why is it ignorant?
It's ignorant because most bodega owners are immigrants. They come from very poor countries, and they come here to try to make a living and do the right thing by the city. A bodega is not just where you sell food.
For real. And the other thing is these businesses work at very, very, very small margins. They're not making hundreds of millions. So when Mamdani was talking about corporate and this, that, the other, he's not including the fact that these mom and pops, these bodegas are going to be impacted, but it doesn't matter to him. He's a millionaire. His mom is some big producer. His dad is an academic. So these ideas don't cost him anything. He can go back to wherever he's from. Uganda, he can go back there if he wants to. He has enough money to move anywhere in the world, but he's going to do this social experiment on New York. And I think the New Yorkers are going to be wise, but they weren't given a very good option in the first place because it was Cuomo or Mamdani, and it really wasn't a good option. They didn't run a good person, but we'll see when the actual election takes place, because you're going to have Eric Adams, and black people are going to back Eric Adams. As much as they're upset with him, they're gonna back him. Then you're gonna have this Mamdani. Then you're gonna have Sliwa. You'll have other people. It's gonna be very interesting. But don't let these bad ideas that sound good on the surface, because you feel like you're getting something for nothing. There's nothing that you get for nothing. Someone is subsidizing this, and you can't keep just saying, I'm going to tax the rich people, because rich people have options. It's people like me and you that don't have options. It's people like me and you that have to stay where we are and just put up with whatever's happening. So he can try these ideas that have been tried and have never worked. He can try them, but don't let him try them in New York.
So they're also community centers. So if you're able to infiltrate government into the private sector, you're basically ruining the dreams and the spirits of all these small business people who have risked everything they have.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So once again, we got to talk about another story that I think is a prime example of what I just talked about in my first video today about how socialists are very simple-minded, okay, and that they have a childlike worldview, okay? This Marxist ideology of the rich versus the poor leads to really, really, really bad outcomes. And
facts. And the thing is, if you look at it, most socialists come from wealthy backgrounds. Even if you look at the Communist Party and you read about communism and socialism, the people that propagated these ideas were wealthy people from wealthy families because they have the luxury beliefs. They can look at things theoretically and they can look at things academically because they're not out there working. Like when you see him, this Mamdani guy, like I'm not knocking it. He's Harvard educated. His parents are worth millions, but he always says us and we, as if he has felt what regular people have felt. So these socialists and these Marxists and these communists, and they're self-proclaimed, so it's not a label I'm putting on them. They can say these things. They've never lived our lives. They're not like us, as they say. They are not like us, but they will always try to pit us against someone else. And we fall for it every single time. All you have to do is say the other guy is racist or the other guy is trying to hold down black and brown people, which what does that even mean? What does brown and people of color, what does that even really mean? It's only meant to divide us, that the people that are saying it can keep power and gain even more power.
Really bad ideas, right? And the bad idea that we got to talk about here today is these socialist grocery stores that every single time they're tried in this country, they end up failing, okay? And I talked about a socialist grocery store that failed in Florida, outside of Jacksonville, Florida, a few weeks ago when we were talking about Zohran Mamdani and his promise to bring socialist government-owned grocery stores to New York City in order to solve the quote-unquote food desert problem, which is essentially a problem for the free market to solve. And again, stories like this is going to back up exactly what I've been telling you guys and my theory behind how, again, this food desert thing is just a socialist marketing gimmick rather than an actual
facts. This whole thing about food deserts is down to the fact that they want more power. They want to be able to get your money, because in black communities, the stores that need to be there will be there. Like you had a lot of these big bucks or these big chains in a lot of communities that when the whole George Floyd thing happened, they said, oh, we're going to give all this money and we're going to do all this stuff for the community. It never happened, but it was a way to keep us on the hook because there was an election coming up and a lot of people fell for it. But also because of the weak enforcement of the law and them changing things and bail reform and all these things that we don't want. It's not us that wants that. We don't want when somebody goes into a store with a gun that because they're arrested and because they come from, they're black and brown and people of color, we don't want them released back on the street because they're being released back onto our street. They're not going up to Westchester. They're not going upstate. They're coming back to our hood. So we're the ones that do not want that. But people who can have luxury beliefs because they're living in gated community and they think, I'll give them credit, they actually do think that they're doing the right thing. They think they're doing right by people of color because people of color have no agency and they're just so deprived and the whole world is against them. If we don't give them a break, they won't ever be able to make anything of themselves in lives. So we know they're going to rob people. We know that they're not going to have morals and scruples. And therefore, when they are arrested, we need to make sure they don't have to pay bail. So these aren't ideas from our community. And when you look at the statistics, who wanted to defund the police, it wasn't us, because we need the police. Now, obviously, we want to make sure that the police in our community aren't abusing their authority or abusing their power. That goes without saying. But we need the police in our neighborhood. So the people that were voting to defund the police were not us. And even with this Mamdani, with this election, this pre-election for the Democrats, it wasn't people in the hood voting for him. It was people that aren't in the hood because they have the ability to just say, this sounds good. And, free grocery stores, we know the blacks need that. They were able to do that, but we don't want it. We don't want it. And I hope that people come to their senses and don't have an apathetic view. So they don't just say, well, I'm going to stay home. Because I talked to a lot of my friends in New York, and prior to all of this uproar and him kind of being more prominent on the national stage, no one knew who he was. They knew who Cuomo was, and they knew that they didn't like him, but they didn't know who this guy was. And now the Democrats have to reckon with this man. And I tell you what, he's not going to be good for New York.
To the current state of this grocery store, because this should be a warning to anybody that's thinking about voting for this nonsense and how it does not work in the end result of all of this. But first, I want to play a clip of how excited the residents were and the community was when this grocery store was first being built in 2018 with public funds. Take a look.
Well, a metro neighborhood trying to resuscitate a local shopping center, all with a grocery store. And while it'll help breathe life into the area, it'll also help with the quality of life.
What are groceries? A lot of cardboard, a lot of metal, a lot of, electrical stuff going in. But what do you see when you look?
I mean, this is like, these guys help make dreams come true.
Dreams come true for people like Shanice Howard.
It'd be a lot of help.
Because getting to and from a grocery store, well, it's been kind of like a nightmare. Closest one to her is quite the haul.
40 highway. Evening time, rush hour, that's like almost 30 minutes. For real.
Just steps from her front door, progress. We first told you last year about Sunfresh setting up shop.
I can guarantee you people were lining their pockets with those contracts. I can guarantee you that there were people that were getting backhanders to say, oh, we're building this community grocery store. It's all good. It's for the community. I can guarantee you that things were not done above board. There's this guy named Scott Adams, and Scott Adams says, anywhere there's a lot of money and a lot of complexity, there is always corruption. And that's on the left and on the right, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. And most people don't have the character to be able to turn down money. And when you're talking about millions and sometimes hundreds of millions and possibly billions in funding, you're always going to have corruption. So these things are never done above board. And you'll see as this story progresses that it starts out with these great ideas and people feel like they're going to get something for nothing. Never works
in the
out.
Linwood Shopping Center.
This community has been void of a grocery store for a number of years.
For more than a decade.
You're looking at a cooler there. You can see the side of it.
This was our family grocery store. I would come here, I would stocking groceries here and there, trying to make a couple of dollars.
For Councilman Jermaine Reed,
so it's great.
It's a trip down memory lane.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But even more important, it's a short trip for those on a tight budget.
Especially the seniors.
All right, so you have to ask yourself a question. If you understand capitalism, they're saying that there has not been a grocery store there for a decade, right? Now, if you are a capitalist and if you are someone that solves problems, you would say, well, clearly there's a need. So you have to ask yourself, why is it that independent people or smaller companies are not moving into this area? Because it would seem as if everyone's so excited that after a decade, this grocery store is being opened, it would seem as if somebody else would have thought of this before. My suspicion is that the reason why they're not there is because they kept getting robbed, or because that grocery store would not be profitable due to shrinkage, which is another way of saying shoplifting.
Citizens that don't have transportation.
I also help my grandma because my grandma's like almost 90.
So with every measure taken, with every piece of wood sawed, every piece of metal installed,
They just need to hurry up.
it helps restore a healthy lifestyle and peace of mind for residents like Howard. She recently moved here to take care of her grandmother.
She can't really move that, that well and stuff like that. So knowing that it's a store around the corner for her.
38,000 square feet full of groceries, fresh produce.
So to watch the progress go forward is amazing.
And for people living nearby, it's life-changing.
Oh my God. Yeah, they need to have a grocery store around the corner.
Yeah, so you've seen that, you heard that. Okay, a feel-good story. Sounds great, right? Sounds amazing for the government to step in and to solve this problem of a food desert, right? Come to find out, fast forward about 7 to 8 years later, that there's a reason why there's no grocery store there, right? There's a reason why businesses aren't operating there. And this city...
I told you. It's just common sense. Like, as just as someone who's a hustler, you see that there's an area or a neighborhood where there's a need for a grocery store. You open a grocery store. It's just common sense. The only reason why you wouldn't is if you didn't think you would make money, or it was tried and other people lost money.
And these residents had to find out the hard way. Let's get into it.
Story getting national headlines tonight. Store shelves are sitting empty at a Sunfresh market just a couple months after leaders approved hundreds of thousands of dollars to make sure this does not happen. This is over on 31st and Prospect, which many feared could become a food desert.
That's because there aren't many stores in the area. This map shows that when you zoom out, it's one of a few options in the area. But if you were to take it out completely, you can see some people may have to drive about 20 minutes away to get fresh produce. It's why the city approved more than $700,000 in May to keep it running and fully stocked.
So the big question here, what happened? KCTV5's Betsy Webster went to find out.
Socialism happened. Communism happened. Greed happened. All of the stuff that happens time and time again when the government steps in. This is why the free market left to itself always works. It works partly because of greed. It works partly because as a capitalist, I'm going to see a need. I'm going to create a solution. I'm going to price it in a way that I can be paid an amount that is enough for me to make a profit to build more. If I'm not going to be able to make a profit, I won't do it. Only the government can afford to do things on a subsidized basis because they're spending our money. And only people who do not think these things through are duped every single time.
To be fair, not all the shelves are bare. There's plenty of non-perishable offerings. If you see behind me here, there's plenty of cleaning supplies. I saw a lot of canned food, boxed food like mac and cheese, even some frozen foods. The trouble is when you try to find anything fresh, refrigerated. This section here, that's where the cold cuts were. A woman just walked up and said, "Where's the meat?" And you know what? The produce section is even emptier. How would you feel if you saw a produce section like this?
It just makes me want to walk right back out. But I had to get something, so yeah, it's mind-boggling.
The whole point of the city's financial backing is to have fresh food options available in a neighborhood that's otherwise considered a food desert. Barely 3 months ago, the city agreed to release $750,000 immediately to assist.
I don't understand why the stocks haven't been refilled.
I can almost guarantee, and this is going to be a horrible thing to say, but I can almost guarantee, even after this, all of these people will still vote for the exact same leaders. As long as their skin color is correct and they say that the other side is racist, these people will continue to vote the same way. This is why the only way forward is not to be a Republican, not to be a Democrat, but to be an independent. To vote based on what's going to be best for your community every single time. Because right now, a lot of Democratic cities and states, they know they have it in a bag. Same way for some of the Republican states. So they never have to really do anything or change anything or improve anything. They just need to keep saying that the other side is bad. The other side is racist. The other side is trying to hold you down. The other side has a system in place. That's all they have to do. And they know that. But we will keep voting the same exact way every single time. And so it's just that's what's mind-boggling to me. What's mind-boggling to me is like they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
The CEO of Community Builders, the store's nonprofit operator, has said repeatedly in the past that he can't keep shelves well stocked if he doesn't have customers. And customers are scared off by crime and blight in the shopping center. He says that's the responsibility of the city.
Boom. So they're scared off by crime. They're scared. So people aren't going in there. So now we've wasted taxpayers' money to do something that we knew would have failed. But then we have Mamdani in New York talking about doing this again. And you have New Yorkers who are not paying attention to the fact that it can't work. It won't work. It's not designed to work. So like, this is the other thing about a lot of these socialist ideas. They're academic ideas. You know, so if you can, make sure you read some of Scott Adams' books. Make sure you read some of Thomas Sowell's books, because he talks a lot. Thomas Sowell speaks a lot about economy, and he has a book, and it's something about academics but one of the things he says, the thing is, like, an academic can come up with an idea. They get paid for their ideas. Whereas an engineer gets paid to deliver. So an engineer can't say, well, I'm going to build a building that has no foundation, because it won't stand up and people will die and he will lose his job. An academic can come up with an idea for something, propagate it. We can try it. It can fail. And he or she can just come up with another idea. This is why it doesn't work, because ultimately you have to think about human nature. And as much as we'd like to think that, you know, everybody should have the same stuff and everybody should be able to have access to the exact same stuff, it doesn't work, because everybody's different and we don't all want the same things. We all want different things. So to try to create a system where everybody has the same thing is silly. Thomas Sowell said this. He was like, you could have, and we've seen it, you could have siblings, so 3 siblings. You could have, you know, a brother, 2 sisters, whatever. They all grow up in the same house, in the same community, with the same parents, go to the same schools, and have 3 completely different outcomes. This is with the same DNA, the same family, the same. So if that can happen in a family, how could the government ever think that they could give or make sure that everybody has the same outcomes? Now, I'm not saying that people should not have access. People should be given access. I'm not saying that we should not try to ensure that the least amongst us get the additional help that they need. Absolutely. But you can't just look at an outcome and say, well, because there's more bald-headed people that are succeeding in this particular field, it's inherently racist or hairist or whatever. You can't do that. Some people just gravitate to certain things. Some groups of people, some cultures of people just gravitate to particular things. You can't force feed a system and say you have to get this particular outcome. And this is what happens quite often with socialism. It goes against human nature. And that's one of the many reasons why it doesn't work.
Which is his landlord. KCTV5 went to City Hall to ask council members what happened to the money and got one no comment after another.
They need to check their bank accounts. They need to check their bank accounts. They need to do a forensic review of who was getting paid, because that's a lot of money to just go missing for people to just be saying no comment.
Community Builders CEO has not addressed that question either.
I hope they get something fixed here so it'll be much better for the whole community.
I just ran into a regular customer who didn't want to talk on camera, but I asked him, you know, the shelves were empty here in April. We reported on that. They're empty again now. Did they fill back up at some point in the middle? He said, nope, it's been like this the whole time.
And you know what's going to happen in all of this when the next election comes up? They're going to vote the exact same way. You got to punish these people. You've got to punish politicians who make promises, come in, and don't deliver. The whole point of electing these people is to make your life better. So my words of wisdom is this: don't think party, think policy. Test the policies, educate yourself, make sure you understand what you're voting for. If the other guy does something that is good, make sure you shout about it. If your guy does something that is bad, make sure you call him to account. That's the only way we'll get better politicians. Now, I'm just a guy with a Wi-Fi connection. These are my opinions. I could be wrong. Make sure you put your comments in the comment section. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and make sure you share, and make sure you shout out Black conservative perspective, because that's where I get a lot of the content. And the reason why I comment on a lot of his videos is because as much as I agree with a lot of what he says, I disagree with a lot of what he says as well. So it makes for a good conversation, and hopefully you've learned